You know that feeling, right? You're all set to use some cool AI tool, you type in what you want, maybe it's something simple, maybe complex, and then the result comes back, and it's just, well, off. Kind of bland or generic, or sometimes just plain weird. Not what you had in mind at all.
Oh, yeah. That's a really common frustration. You see these incredible AI creations online, things that look amazing, but then you try it, and what you get feels, I don't know, underwhelming, like the AI just didn't quite get what you were asking for.
Exactly. And that can make you think, well, maybe AI isn't all it's cracked up to be, or this is just too complicated, like it's some kind of secret code. But the thing is, getting those great results consistently, it's not really magic. It's actually a skill, something anyone can get the hang of.
And that skill, that's what we call prompt engineering. It's basically the art and science of talking to AI effectively, learning how to frame your requests, your prompts, so the AI knows exactly what you're looking for.
And that's what this whole deep dive is about today. We've been digging into this source guide, one that really focuses on, like, the formula for a perfect prompt.
Yeah.
We've pulled out what we think are the most important rules and techniques from it. The stuff that can take you from that frustrating guesswork to getting predictable, genuinely useful results, whether that's text generation or creating images.
Yeah, our mission here is pretty straightforward. We want to equip you, the listener, with practical, actionable tips from this guide. The goal is to help you unlock the real power of these AI tools you might already be using. So you can move from just kind of hoping for the best to confidently telling the AI what you need and actually getting it.
Okay, let's get into it then. Before we jump straight into the rules for writing prompts, maybe we should take a step back. We need to understand why being so precise is, well, so important for AI. How does it actually think? If you can even call it thinking, because it's definitely not like how we think.
That's really the fundamental thing this source hammers home. AI especially, these large language models and the image generators, they don't see or understand in a human way. Like when you hear a cat sitting on a couch, your brain instantly pulls up all these connections, right? The texture of fur, the shape of the furniture, maybe even a specific memory.
Yeah, we have all this built-in context, decades of experience.
Exactly. AI, it has none of that. What it does have is math. Mountains of it. Every single word, every pixel, and the enormous amount of data it was trained on billions of web pages, books, images, gets converted into numbers. Think of them like complex digital barcodes or vectors. And the AI's job is to find statistical patterns, connections between all those numbers.
Okay, so when I give it a prompt, say for text, it's not understanding my request conceptually. It's more like running a massive pattern matching game.
Precisely. For a text AI, it's predicting the next word that's statistically most likely to follow your prompt, based on all the patterns it learned from the text it read. For an image AI, it's predicting the most probable arrangement of pixels that matches the patterns linked to the words in your prompt.
Wow. So it's not really thinking or seeing or creating in the way we mean it. It's just pattern matching on a colossal scale.
That's the core insight. You absolutely cannot talk to AI expecting nuance, intuition, or common sense like you would with a person. To get good results, you have to feed it the right patterns. Give it clear, unambiguous instructions that help it find the relevant connections in its data. You have to learn to sort of speak its language.
That actually makes a lot of sense. If it's all about patterns, then the clearer and more specific the pattern I describe in my prompt, the better chance the AI has of matching it correctly and giving me what I want.
You got it. You're basically steering its pattern matching process in the right direction.
Okay, so with that foundation, understanding why AI needs this specific guidance, let's dive into those essential rules. Starting with large language models, or LLMs. These are the text-based AIs, right? Like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. The ones you use for writing, help, summarizing, maybe even coding. The source guide lays out some really practical rules, and the first one feels a bit counterintuitive maybe, but it's important. Ditch the fluff.
Yeah, it seems simple, but it's surprisingly effective. Remember, the AI doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have an ego. It doesn't need politeness or small talk. So phrases like, could you please possibly generate? Or, I was wondering if you could tell me. Or even, what do you think about? They're just noise to the AI.
They don't actually help it figure out the core task. Okay, so the source says keep prompts direct, factual. Like instead of, would you be so kind as to write me a short story about a courageous robot and its very loyal canine companion who embark on a thrilling adventure together in outer space? You say, write a short story about a robot and a dog going on an adventure in space. Much shorter.
C. Cleaner. Straight to the point. It saves you typing time, obviously, But maybe more importantly, it saves the AI process time. It doesn't have to waste resources. It's tokens, parsing those extra pleasantries. Fewer distractions in the prompt often mean a more focused, better result. The guide's mantra is simple and clean.
Simple and clean. Okay, I can remember that. So rule 1 is about removing unnecessary stuff. Rule 2 seems to be about adding the right stuff. Be descriptive.
This is where you really start to level up your results. This rule directly tackles that guessing problem we talked about. By being descriptive, you give the AI less room to make assumptions, which is often where things go sideways.
Right, you're cutting down the chances of it misunderstanding by giving it more context. What kind of details matter most here?
The source highlights three key areas. The topic itself, obviously, but also the desired tone of the output, and really importantly, the target audience. It uses a good example. If you just ask for, say, a blog post about Middle East economics in the 1960s, well, that's super broad. The AI has no idea how long it should be, what kind of tone to use, who it's even supposed to be writing for. The result will probably be pretty generic, maybe not very helpful.
Okay, but if you get specific, like write a 1,000-word blog post about the economic situation of Kuwait, specifically from 1961 to 1967. Aim it at beginners and use a conversational tone. Now you've given it a lot more to work with. Word count, time frame, location, audience level, the tone.
Exactly. You've basically laid out the blueprint. The response you get back is going to be much more detailed, much more relevant, and closer to what you actually need. The source calls this front-loading the work. Spend a bit more time crafting that detailed prompt up front, and you save yourself potentially a lot of time editing or trying to fix a vague output later on.
So specificity tells the AI what information to focus on, and context tells it how to present or frame that information. They really go together.
Absolutely. They're like best friends for good prompting. Vague input equals vague output. Adding those specifics, that context, ensures the AI tailors the response to your exact needs. Saves time, less guesswork.
Okay, building on that idea of guiding how the AI responds, rule number 3 is interesting. Role play.
This is a really neat trick. It's a powerful way to filter the AI's enormous knowledge base and shape its response style. You essentially assign the AI a job. Tell it to act as if it's a journalist or a lawyer, a marketing consultant, a fiction writer, whatever persona fits the task.
And doing that makes the AI sort of channel that role. It uses the kind of language and focuses on the type of information someone in that profession would.
Precisely. It acts like a filter. It helps the AI narrow its focus, making the output more accurate within that specific domain, often more factual, and definitely less generic than if you just asked a general question. The example in the source was good. Instead of just explain the legal process for patenting an invention, which could be very dry or overly technical, try. You are a patent lawyer. Explain the legal process for patenting an invention in simple terms for a non-legal audience.
Ah, okay. So it's not just what it says, but how it says it. It frames the explanation like an expert talking to a beginner. That seems incredibly useful for getting targeted, understandable information.
It really helps the AI adopt the right mindset, the right level of expertise, and the appropriate tone for your specific request.
Got it. So rule 1, simple and clean, ditch fluff. Rule 2, be descriptive, topic, tone, audience. Rule 3, role play. What's the 4th key rule from the source? Use limitations.
Right, limitations. LLMs, sometimes they just keep going. They can over-explain things, wander off into irrelevant details, or just write way more text than you actually need or want. Setting clear boundaries helps prevent that.
So this is about explicitly telling it what not to do or where to stop.
Yeah.
Like putting up guardrails.
Exactly. You can specify things like word counts or paragraph limits. You can tell it to focus only on certain aspects or to actively avoid mentioning other things. The source contrasts a really vague prompt like, write about renewable energy. I mean, where does it even start with that? Compare that to a limited prompt. Write a 200-word summary focusing on the benefits of solar energy. Avoid technical jargon and stick only to the environmental advantages.
Okay, yeah, that's much tighter. You've defined the length, the specific type of energy, the angle benefits, who it's for implicitly, no jargon, and what to exclude non-environmental aspects.
And a pro tip from the guide is to use really explicit keywords for this, words like avoid only, focus on, exclude. They make the boundaries crystal clear to the AI. Another example they used, write a 3-paragraph article summarizing the pros and cons of wind energy for high school students. Avoid discussing financial incentives and focus only on environmental benefits and drawbacks.
Wow, okay. That prompt packs in the topic, the audience, the structure, 3 paragraphs. a specific constraint, avoid financials, and a clear focus area, environmental pros cons, leaves very little to chance.
Right. It drastically reduces the AI's need to guess, which is usually when you get those less than ideal results. Leads to much more precise output.
Okay, those 4 rules. Bitch fluff, be descriptive, role play, use limitations feel like a really solid starting point for getting better text results. But the source guide didn't stop there, did it? It went into some more advanced techniques for tackling trickier tasks or getting very specific kinds of output. Let's talk about those for LLMs. First one mentioned is iterative prompting.
Yeah, this is super useful, especially when you have a really complex request, or maybe you're not 100% sure what the final output should look like right at the start. Instead of trying to craft one massive, perfect prompt that covers everything, you break it down. You build on the AI's responses, refining your request step by step.
So it's more like having a conversation, refining as you go.
Exactly. The source used that renewable energy example again. You might start broad, explain renewable energy, then look at what it gives you and refine. Okay, now focus just on the advantages of wind energy compared to fossil fuels. And maybe you need it simpler. So the next step is, all right, can you rewrite that last explanation but make it suitable for a 10-year-old? Use simple language and maybe an analogy.
Ah, I see. Each step gets you closer, building on the last response. That seems much less daunting than trying to write one perfect, complex prompt from scratch.
Yeah, it helps manage complexity and lets you fine-tune along the way. Another advanced technique they mention is explicitly defining style, tone, and formatting.
This sounds like taking that be descriptive rule and really drilling down on the presentation aspect.
That's exactly it. You're telling the AI precisely how you want the information presented. Do you need a bulleted list? A table comparing options, a formal essay structure, maybe something creative like a poem or song lyrics. The source contrasts just asking, tell me about the history of computers, which could give you anything with a much more specific request. Write a timeline of major events in computer history, format it as a bullet list, include 5 to 7 key milestones, and provide just one sentence explaining the significance of each.
Right, that guarantees you get the structure you actually need instead of hoping the AI guesses correctly.
Definitely. Specifying the format upfront dramatically increases the chance you get something usable right away. Next up is few-shot prompting.
Okay, few shot. Sounds like giving you examples.
That's exactly what it is. Few-shot prompting is really powerful. You actually show the AI what you want by providing one or maybe a few examples of the kind of input-output pair you're looking for. You're essentially giving it a mini template or demonstrating the specific style or format you need.
So instead of just describing, you're saying, do something like this example I'm giving you.
Precisely. This works wonders for tasks where the style or the tone or a particular vibe is really important. Or maybe for tasks that are a bit unusual, things the AI might not have seen many examples of in its training. The source used a music example, asking for a chord progression in a specific style, like the Beach Boys. Just asking for a pop chord progression might give you something generic. But if you provide an actual Beach Boys chord progression in the prompt as an example, and then ask for another one like it, the AI gets a much better sense of that specific harmonic flavor you want.
That's clever. You're giving it a concrete example to learn from right there in the context window.
Yeah, it's incredibly effective for anything where those nuances matter, writing style, specific tones, even complex data formatting.
Cool. What about chain of thought? That sounds analytical?
It kind of is. Chain of thought prompting is about structuring complex requests in a way that encourages the AI to work through them step by step, logically. You might break down your request into a sequence of points or provide guidelines for the AI to follow in its reasoning process.
So you're not just telling it what to do, but outlining the process it should follow, like giving it a checklist within the prompt.
Pretty much, yeah. You're laying out the required components or the logical flow. For instance, instead of just explain the pros and cons of renewable energy, you might structure it. Explain the pros and cons of renewable energy, making sure to address the following points. 1. Environmental impact. 2. Economic considerations. 3. Availability and scalability. 4. Long-term sustainability.
Okay. That ensures it hits all the key points you need covered and doesn't just ramble or miss something crucial.
Right. It helps guide the AI through the required steps, especially for multi-part requests. And speaking of complex requests, maybe the simplest technique is just splitting complex tasks.
Just breaking down a really big ask into smaller, more focused chunks.
Exactly. This is probably the #1 way to reduce errors, and especially those weird hallucinations where the AI just confidently makes stuff up. If you give the AI a prompt that's overloaded with too many instructions or concepts, its chances of getting confused or mixing things up increase dramatically.
Like asking it to explain the causes, the effects, and the potential solutions for something huge like climate change, all in one go. That seems risky.
The source uses that exact example. Instead of one monster prompt, you break it down. Prompt 1. List the top 3 human activities causing climate change. Prompt 2. Describe the main effects of climate change already being observed globally. Prompt 3. Suggest 2 practical policy solutions governments could implement to mitigate climate change.
The AI is much more likely to nail each of those smaller, focused tasks accurately. Then you just combine the results. Seems way more reliable, especially for factual stuff.
It definitely boosts accuracy and reduces the processing strain on the AI and on you. Now, sometimes, even with all these techniques, you might still be struggling to get the prompt quite right. The source has a really simple but quite clever suggestion for that. Ask the AI itself for help.
Ask the AI to help me write a better prompt. That's kind of meta.
It is. But think about it. These AIs are incredibly good at understanding and manipulating language. You can literally paste your draft prompt into the chat and ask things like, how can I make this prompt clearer to get a more detailed response? Or can you suggest ways to refine this prompt for a better outcome? The AI might suggest adding specificity based on what you've already written, maybe recommend a different format, or even suggest breaking the task down for you.
That's actually brilliant. You're using the tool to teach you how to use the tool more effectively, like having a built-in prompting coach. Okay, one more thing from the LLM section. The source briefly mentioned something called parameters. Can you give us the simple version of what those are?
Sure. Parameters are basically extra controls, like dials or settings, that you can sometimes adjust in the AI's interface. They influence the response beyond just the words in your prompt. The source highlights temperature as a common one. Think of temperature as controlling randomness or maybe creativity. A high temperature setting encourages the AI to explore less common word choices, leading to potentially more creative, surprising, sometimes even weird results. A low temperature keeps it closer to the most statistically probable common word sequences, making the output more focused, predictable, maybe safer.
Interesting. So you can fine-tune the kind of flavor or the amount of variability in the response.
Exactly. And the source does note that the specific parameter names and exactly how they work can differ between various AI models like ChatGPT, might have different options than Gemini or Mistral. They also briefly mention others you might see, like max tokens, which controls the maximum length of the response, or things like top P or top K, which influence the diversity of word choices allowed. It's another layer of control for advanced users.
Good to know they exist, even if we don't dive deep now.
Yeah.
And while we're on tools, the source did mention a couple by name.
Right, yeah. It mentioned Prados as an example of a tool that uses AI specifically to help create social media content. So it helps with generating post ideas, writing the text, even creating images or videos, all based on your initial input. It streamlines that whole workflow, including things like scheduling posts or integrating with e-commerce.
So that shows how AI isn't always just a chatbot you talk to, right? It's being embedded inside other tools to automate specific tasks, like content creation.
Precisely. And the source also pointed to a website called AI Master, mentioning it as a place for reviews of different AI tools and also resources if you want to learn more AI basics.
Okay, that wraps up the text side, the
Right.
LLMs. But generating images is a whole different ballgame, isn't it? Do the same prompting principles apply?
The core idea is actually very similar. Good prompt equals good results. But the way you prompt is different. Just like LLMs turn text into number patterns, image generators map the words and concepts in your prompt onto visual patterns they've learned. They've seen millions, maybe billions of images tagged with descriptions.
And it's not just finding one image that matches, right? It's blending styles, objects, concepts it's learned.
Exactly. The source mentions the diffusion process, basically. The AI starts with random noise, like TV static, and then gradually refines it step by step until it forms an image that statistically matches the patterns associated with your text prompt. The absolute key difference from prompting LLMs is this. For images, you are primarily describing in detail the visual scene you want to see. You're not usually giving instructions on how to draw it, like use a thick brush stroke here.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah?
You're painting a picture with words, setting the scene for the AI to interpret visually. And the source guide says the secret weapon for image prompts is structure.
Absolutely. Just throwing a list of keywords at it, like Cat Street, Cyberpunk, Neon Night, usually gives you a jumbled mess. You need clear, detailed instructions that create a coherent scene. The source offers a really simple but effective three-step framework to structure your image prompts. 1. Subject. 2. Description. 3. Style or aesthetic.
Okay, subject is the main focus, the person, the creature, the object. And adding strong adjectives helps.
Big time. Instead of just cat, make it a fluffy black cat with piercing green eyes. That gives the AI much more specific visual information for the main element. Then step 2, description, adds the context. What's the subject doing? Where is it located? What's happening in the background? This is what elevates a simple idea. It takes you from just dragon flying to something vivid like a majestic red dragon soaring through turbulent storm clouds, lightning strikes illuminating its scales as it breathes a stream of fire into the dark night sky. The background details are crucial for mood.
Yeah, they really ground the subject and set the whole vibe. And then step 3, style aesthetic. This tells the AI how it should look visually.
Exactly. Are you looking for a photorealistic image, a watercolor painting, a 3D model render, a cartoon sketch? What artistic style should it emulate? Impressionist, cyberpunk, gothic horror, Art Nouveau. You can even reference specific artists in the style of Van Gogh or inspired by Studio Ghibli. And don't forget framing. Is it a close-up shot, a wide landscape view, a bird's eye perspective?
Okay, so subject, be specific with adjectives. Description, action, setting, background details. And style, medium, art style, artist reference, framing. Got it. The source made a big point about describing a scene versus just listing keywords, didn't it?
Oh, definitely. That keyword list example, cat, urban street, cyberpunk, neon, nighttime high quality, is likely to produce something confusing. Maybe a cat on a street sign that says cyberpunk, who knows? But compare that to the descriptive example from the source. A sleek black cat with glowing green eyes perched alertly on a rain-slicked urban street in a vibrant cyberpunk city at night. Towering skyscrapers loom in the background. Neon signs in electric blues and pulsing purples reflect off the wet pavement, casting long, dramatic shadows. Photorealistic-style cinematic lighting.
Wow, yeah. That second one paints such a clear picture. Gives the AI so much more information about how the elements relate to each other, the atmosphere, everything. Feels like writing a shot description for a movie.
It really is like that. It helps the AI understand the composition and the mood you're aiming for. Now, about prompt length for images. The source says there's no single magic number. It really depends on the specific AI model you're using and how complex or detailed you want the image to be. Short prompts might be good for just quick concept sketches, getting ideas down. Medium prompts may be for rough drafts. And longer, detailed prompts, like the cyberpunk cat example, are for generating those really specific, polished masterpieces. Practice helps you get a feel for it.
Makes sense. Subject, description, style, paint the scene, think about length. What of the opposite? Telling the AI what not to include?
Ah, yes, negative prompting. This is your filter, your exclusion list for image generation. You explicitly tell the AI specific elements, styles, or maybe common flaws you want it to avoid.
So you just list things you don't want to see in the picture.
Pretty much. This is incredibly handy for cleaning up images, removing unwanted distractions, avoiding common AI errors like weird hands sometimes, or preventing styles from clashing. Some tools have a dedicated negative prompt box where you list these exclusions. In others, you might incorporate keywords like avoid, exclude, or no into your main prompt, depending on how that specific AI works.
The source had that example of wanting a peaceful, natural beach scene, right? But the AI might throw in buildings or crowds by default based on its training data. So you'd use a negative prompt like avoid buildings, people, crowds, boats, fences, signs, litter, to keep it purely natural.
Exactly. And just like with your main prompt, being specific in your negative prompt is key. Vague negatives don't help much. Finally, the source touched on resolution and quality.
Right, which is important if you actually want to print the image or use it for something bigger than just showing it on screen.
Correct. A lot of AI image tools might default to a lower resolution, like 72 dpi, which looks okay on a monitor but will be blurry or pixelated if you print it large. Now, you often can't just type generate a 300 dpi directly, but you can influence the AI. The source suggests including terms in your main prompt like high resolution, 4K, 8K, ultra detailed, sharp focus, intricate textures. These nudge the AI towards generating more visual information.
And you can also hint at the shape or aspect ratio you want using words like square, landscape, portrait, widescreen.
Yes, absolutely. The source does mention that different platforms handle this differently. It noted that something like DALL-E might be more straightforward with upscaling or resolution prompts, whereas Midjourney might require a bit more experimentation. For Midjourney specifically, using terms like high detail, photorealistic, or even referencing camera settings sometimes helps push the quality up. The source even said they had a separate guide just for Midjourney prompting if you wanted to get really deep into its specifics.
Okay, so boiling it down for image prompts. The core idea is you're acting like an art director. You are describing in detail the exact visual scene, the mood, the style, the quality you want the AI to construct based on all the patterns it knows.
You're using language to paint that target picture for the AI's diffusion process.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a lot. We talked about that fundamental mind shift needed for AI thinking in patterns, not concepts. We went through the essential rules for prompting both text AI and image AI, and we touched on some powerful advanced techniques all drawn from this source guide. Let's bring back home for everyone listening. Why does getting good at this prompt engineering stuff actually matter? Why should you care?
Well, I think it comes down to agency, really. You're probably already using AI tools, or you certainly will be soon, in all sorts of ways: work, personal projects, just exploring. Learning to prompt effectively fundamentally changes your relationship with these powerful tools. You stop being just a passive user, kind of hoping you get lucky with the output,
Yeah.
and you become an active director. You gain control.
Yeah, it shifts AI from being this unpredictable black box that occasionally spits out something useful into becoming a tool you can reliably steer to get specific high-quality results when you need them.
Think about the time savings. Less frustration, less endless tweaking of mediocre results. It empowers you to actually tap into the incredible capabilities these AIs have to use them effectively for your specific goals, whether that's creative work, analysis, problem solving, whatever it might be.
Which kind of leads us to a final, maybe provocative thought to leave you with. If prompt engineering, if getting great results from AI, is fundamentally about giving it super clear instructions based on its native language, that mathematical world of patterns and statistics, are we actually learning to truly communicate with an artificial intelligence? Or are we just getting really, really good at reverse engineering its algorithms and speaking to the math? And what does that distinction even mean for how we think about uniquely human things like understanding or creativity or even communication itself, now that machines can perform tasks that seem to require those very things?
Yeah. It definitely makes you think about the nature of intelligence, doesn't it? And how we interact with different forms of it.
Definitely food for thought.
Mm.
But regardless of the philosophy, the practical power of knowing how to prompt effectively is undeniable.
Absolutely. We really hope the rules and the techniques we've unpacked today, based on that source guide, will help you feel more confident and capable as you direct AI in your own projects and explorations.
Give some of these ideas a try next time you're using an AI tool. Ditch the fluff, be descriptive, maybe try assigning it a role or setting some limits, see what happens. You might just be surprised at the difference it makes in the quality of what you get back.
Thank you so much for tuning into this deep dive with us.